In My Opinion with Denton Day, at the Denton Day on Twitter. When life throws you uh-ohs, just say, better get Mako, and head to Mako.com to get an online estimate today. Thursday Night Football, the Carolina Panthers victorious over the Houston Texans 24-9. A man in attendance for the game is the great Jake Asman. You can hear him on the Wheelhouse on 97.5 in Houston from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. local time. And you can hear the Jake Asman Show on the weekends here on SportsMap Radio. He's good enough to join us now. Jake, what's happening, my friend? How are you?
Anytime, Denton. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
What was the atmosphere like last night? I've heard varying reports on attendance and the atmosphere. From your perspective, how was the turnout last night in Houston?
Yeah, I would say, the fans that were there were loud, but it certainly wasn't a sellout. I believe the announced attendance was around 68,000. That seems about right. But look, the fan base was frustrated, especially early on in this game when the Texans really struggled to move the ball. There were some fans that were frustrated with just some of the conservative play calling by the Texans and some of the conservative decisions made by Texans head coach David Culley. But all in all, when you consider the Texans had basically 3 days' notice to get a third-round rookie quarterback in Davis Mills making his starting debut ready for the game, I think that's probably about what you expected if you were looking at this, rationally as far as what to expect from Mills in his first ever start.
I got to be honest, I was stunned with how he played. I think he's a guy that should be very proud of himself because I was expecting him to throw multiple interceptions, turn the ball over a couple of times. What did you see from him in the start that was different from when he came in for relief against the Cleveland Browns?
Yeah, he looked more comfortable, which is a good sign. He looked like, he was not, indecisive in the pocket. You didn't see tendencies of a guy that was making his first ever start, right? He didn't turn the ball over. That's probably the biggest thing you could say. Unfortunately for him, he really never had a chance in this game. The Texans carried 5 running backs on their team, yet you look at what they did last night rushing the ball, and they had 42 yards on the ground. Like that's just not going to win football games when you're playing, a rookie quarterback. I don't care who you are, let alone a guy that was a third-round pick for a reason. Mark Ingram, 21 yards rushing. David Johnson, 11 yards rushing. Phillip Lindsay got the ball more times than anyone, 7 carries, and he only had 5 yards on the ground. His longest run was 3 yards. So, you factor in no running game, facing a really good defense, short week, it was nearly impossible to expect Davis Mills to go out there and play really well. But overall, he didn't lose them the game, which is probably the positive thing I could say about his performance.
I think the position that David Culley is in is not one that's envied by many people just based on some of the things he's had to handle in his very short run so far as the Texans head coach. But when it comes to his actual coaching decisions, where does he need to get better and improve?
I would like to see him be more aggressive, I would say. It's tough to really gauge what he is and what he isn't as a coach through 3 games, especially when you lose your starting quarterback at halftime of week 2. And I truly believe that if Tyrod Taylor is healthy last night, I think the Texans win the game, especially after the injury to Christian McCaffrey. And who knows, they would have had a real chance to take down Cleveland last week. They were tied 14-all at halftime, and Tyrod obviously hurt his hamstring and didn't play after the second quarter. So, it's unfortunate, but for David Culley, I would like to see him be more aggressive. This team is probably not going to be very good, so you might as well take all your chances and be as aggressive as possible. There was a situation in this game last night where the Texans had the football, and they could have went for it on 4th and short and on 4th and 4, I think it was, and instead they elected to punt. I just think those type of decisions, you'd like to see David Culley be a little more aggressive. But overall, through 3 games, I don't think you could put any of the losses on coaching. I think it's just been the Texans just simply do not have the talent to match up with the teams they played so far.
Talking with Jake Asman here on In My Opinion with Denton Day. He joins us via the Progressive Guest Line, the co-host of The Wheelhouse on ESPN 97.5 in Houston, and the Jake Asman Show here on SportsMap Radio, at Jake Asman, where you can find him on Twitter. Is Deshaun Watson as big of a distraction to the Texans as someone like me with the bird's eye view, the multi-thousand-mile view, seems to think that he is?
It's an interesting thing. I feel like from the outside we talk about it, and it's obviously still a huge story surrounding this team nationally. And look, doing an afternoon show in Houston every day, it certainly has been a major topic of conversation and will continue to be until there's some sort of resolution to everything going on. But I think internally they've done a nice job of kind of blocking out that potential distraction. I think they have fully moved on. I think this team is, was really excited about Tyrod Taylor and the way he was playing, and then obviously his injury really stinks for him and the team. But I think they've moved on. I don't think, it's weighing on the team like it maybe is nationally. I think the Texans have done a pretty good job handling what is just an unprecedented situation. And just like everyone else, they're kind of just waiting for the legal stuff to clear up so they could eventually move this guy and still get a boatload for one of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL.
How did you feel that Sam Darnold played last night for the Carolina Panthers?
I thought he was good. I think we're making too much of his performance. And look, I like Sam Darnold. I'm rooting for him to do well. Believe me, he had no chance to ever find success his first 3 years with the Jets because of the coaching ineptitude and the lack of talent around him. I'd be the first to tell you that. But I thought last night he was fine, right? I mean, he didn't turn the ball over, which has always been an issue for him. He didn't have happy feet in the pocket, which is what happens when you don't have a ton of pressure in your face on every drop back. I didn't think he did anything spectacular. I don't really think he's done anything spectacular in any of these 3 wins that the Panthers have had. But he hasn't been bad. He's been steady, and that has been an issue for him. And this is why when you have really good players around you and much better coaching, if you don't turn the ball over and you play quarterback in the NFL, you're going to look solid. And I'm happy for Sam. He obviously has won more games this year than he did all last year with the Jets. So I'm happy for his success so far, but I think we might be overhyping just how good he's been nationally. He's been solid, but I watched this game last night, and he looked like Sam Darnold with the ability to check it down to McCaffrey. He looked like Sam Darnold with the ability to throw to better weapons. I didn't think Sam did anything spectacular, but I don't want to be crapping all over him because he played well, and he deserves credit for that.
I want to get your take on the quarterback that now occupies the starting job in New York. Not a great performance this past weekend. Looking for a better one, obviously, this upcoming weekend. Where are you on the panic meter? I hate the panic meter talk, but, when a guy throws 4 interceptions, I think it's a fair question. Where are you on that meter with Zach Wilson so far through 2 games?
Very low. Yeah, very low, Denton. I agree with you. Look, if Zach Wilson has another game like that in December, I'd be, hitting that panic, meter button, a lot higher, right? But it's 2 games. He looked really good week 1 against the Panthers. It's really frustrating as a Jets fan because Zach Wilson went out there on week 1 and he got sacked 6 times and got hit 14 times, and the Jets nearly won because they came from behind down 16-0 in the second half and only lost by 5. He gave them a chance to come back in that game. Then you fast forward to last Sunday against the Patriots, and I thought the Jets defense played well. The running game had a lot of success on the ground, but when your quarterback throws 4 picks, you don't have a chance. So if only the Jets can combine the 2 performances, right? Wilson playing well like he did week 1, but the Jets defense and running game playing well like they did in week 2, and they would have a legitimate chance to win each of their first 2 games. Obviously, that has not happened, but I'm not panicking yet. It's been one really good game for Zach, one brutal game for him. No one would deny that, but he's not the first rookie quarterback to struggle against Bill Belichick. He certainly won't be the last. And I just feel like his talent level, when you watch him play, it just pops off the screen. And I really like his mentality. I think he's got the right attitude. I think he's got the right moxie to be able to handle, the scrutiny that comes with playing quarterback in the biggest media market in the world. So I'm not panicking about Zach. It's disappointing to see that game happen last week, obviously. But I'm expecting a bounce-back performance on Sunday against the Broncos.
Jake Asman, my guest, joined, in my opinion, with Dent Day, co-host of The Wheelhouse on ESPN 97.5 locally in Houston, and the host of the Jake Asman Show, which you can hear weekends here on SportsMap Radio. At Jake Asman on Twitter is where you can find Tim. I want to pivot towards baseball now, Jake. The race for the wild card spot in the American League is going to be an exceptionally thrilling one, specifically this weekend. The Yankees currently hold that second spot, 2 games behind the Boston Red Sox at the moment. How important is the next 2 series for the Yankees against Boston and against Toronto to really make sure they can secure their spot?
Yeah, if you look at it from really both teams here, this is one of the defining moments of the season for the Yankees and Red Sox. There's no doubt. You look at the Yankees specifically, Denton. They play the Red Sox for 3, then they play Toronto for 3. So, this is put up or shut up time for the Yankees, who have grossly underachieved this year by all accounts, but they still have the opportunity to get into the playoffs if they play well here down the stretch, and particularly with this game tonight, Garrett Cole has not pitched well at Fenway Park this season. He was really bad in his most recent start at home against the Indians last week. So Garrett Cole, who the Yankees made the highest paid pitcher of all time, this is why you got him. You got him for a night like this where you need him to pitch well and help your team get into the playoffs. So, all the pressure in the world is on the highest paid pitcher in the sport in Garrett Cole later tonight against the Red Sox.
How much of a disappointment would it be, considering all the moves that they have made in New York, if they were to be on the outside looking in for the postseason?
It could cost Aaron Boone his job if that's the case, because you can't fire all the players. I do think there'd be significant changes this offseason, but the Yankees had the highest win total projection, in the American League going into the year, and obviously they got out to a terrible start. They had that great, stretch where they were 35-13, including a stretch where they won 13 games in a row. But then after that winning streak, they went 2-11. So it felt like the Yankees were definitely going to run away with one of the wild card spots if they couldn't catch Tampa in the division. But to see them play so poorly after that big winning streak, they have, they allowed the Blue Jays to get back into it. They allowed the Red Sox to, come out and be a game or two games in front of them starting this series. So, either way, it's been a disappointing season because the goal was not to win the wild card. The goal was to win the division and eventually try and win a championship here. So, if they missed the playoffs altogether, given the talent they had, given the payroll they have, it would be one of the biggest disappointments in recent New York sports memory, that's for sure.
Jake, I'll get you out of here with this. When you look at the American League playoff picture, who do you see is at the top of the mountain and the team to beat once the postseason starts?
I don't know if there really is one. That's what's so interesting about the AL. I could argue the Astros, but I don't love their starting pitching. I don't think they have an ace. I think they have a bunch of number 2s and 3s. So you'll see how that translates. I like the Rays, but, it just kind of feels like, eventually this magic fairy tale ride's got to end, right? But they always just keep winning. So I don't know about them. The White Sox are really good, and they got pitching. But my issue with the White Sox, Denton, is they play in such a bad division. Are they going to be battle-tested come playoff time when they face really good teams? Then you look at the Blue Jays. Obviously, their lineup is outstanding, and they have some solid pitching, but I don't trust their bullpen. The Yankees, as we know, are deeply flawed with their rotation, their pitching, and they're too streaky offensively. So all these teams have issues. I don't know if there is really a clear-cut favorite out of the AL. As cliche as it sounds, it might come down to, well, who's just simply put, who's the hottest team at the right time? And, that could honestly dictate who represents the AL in the World Series.
Jake, always appreciate the conversation. Be good, my friend. Let's do this again soon.
Anytime, Denton. Thanks so much for having me.
That is Jake Asman, the co-host of The Wheelhouse on ESPN 97.5 and the host of the Jake Asman Show, which you can hear weekends here on SportsMap Radio at Jake Asman on Twitter. He was kind enough to join us via the progressive guest line here on In My Opinion with Denton Day. This weekend is certainly going to be a fun one for the American League wild card race and just the playoff race in general. I still think there's a little bit of hope and maybe a little bit of optimism if you're a Dodgers fan that maybe you can end the season just a little bit better than the Giants and overtake them so you don't have to play in the wild card round. That's still on the table for the Dodgers as well, as they're just a game back of San Francisco. It's a Football Friday on the program. A lot of great matchups to come this weekend in college football and in the NFL. Coming up, I'm going to give you 3 teams that are desperate for a win this weekend in the National Football League. We do it next on In My Opinion with Denton Day.